to Ole Walls House. It's me. It's your man. It's your main man. It's Ole Walls, and I'm back with you for episode 112 of Ole Walls House. Coming your way, we got a fun show. Got a new guest. Got a couple of returning guests. So first of all, we're going to start off with our new guest, David Page, the man behind Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. He comes on and talks to me about all things food. He's got a new book coming out. Food Americana, or it might not be a new book coming out. It's maybe been out for a bit, but go check it out. You can find it on Amazon. Looks like a good read. That was a really fun conversation that we had coming your way here shortly. Also got a couple of returning guests, the Gordon brothers, T-Man and H-Man, come on to talk a little Flyers hockey here. So I just want to again say thank you to everybody. Thank you for everybody who watches, who listens. Thank you for producer Kevy. He's helping me kind of transition to take over some editing myself, as he's probably sick of dealing with my shit. So thank you to him. Again, thank you to everybody who watches. You guys know the deal with a little housekeeping. If you guys could, please comment, share, subscribe, review. Give me all the likes, do all that stuff. So if you guys could do that, that'd be super helpful. And if you're looking for 20% off Liquid IV, I got a promo code for you. OWH. Promo code is OWH. O for Ole, W for Walls, H for House. You can get your Liquid IV 20% off. I love Liquid IV. I use it almost daily. I love the convenience of the little pack. You throw that in 16 ounces of water. You shake it up, and you're good to go. You get more electrolytes than your leading sport drinks. You get double the hydration than water alone. It's easy to use. They believe in equitable access to water. They've given away over 39 million servings of water. It's non-GMO. It's vegan. It's non-dairy. It's good stuff. So 20% off Liquid IV. Either go to liquidiv.com, use the promo code at checkout, or go to the link in the bio below, and you can in the show notes, and you can get it that way too. So fun show coming up. So let's just dive right into it. Okay, David, we'll try this a second time here. Round two. A new guest joined me here today, David Page, who is probably, I think, most well known through Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. You were the producer on that. So first of all, thank you for joining us. And I'll let you kind of just tell your story a little bit again about your background and how you got started doing what you do and what you're up to now.
Well, thanks for having me. I created Diners, executive produced the first 11 seasons, but my career in media goes way back to when I was in high school and got my first job on a local radio station. And then, as I got older, followed jobs around the country, going to college along the way, but to my mother's consternation, never graduating. I worked in radio in Kansas, Oklahoma, and it was in Kansas where I got into television, moved over to a local TV station. From there, I went to Phoenix as an investigative reporter, held the same job in Atlanta and Houston. Then got picked up by NBC as a producer out of their Chicago bureau, did a couple of years there, was moved internationally, living first in London, then Frankfurt, then Budapest, where I was lucky enough to cover some of the greatest stories of the 20th century. I walked through the Berlin Wall the night it opened. Came back to the States, became a show producer, created the weekend editions of the Today Show with a partner. At ABC News, when I went there, I was both sequentially the senior investigative producer of 2020 and the one of three line producers for Good Morning America, which meant every third week reporting to the executive producer. The show was basically mine to produce and put on the air. After that, I moved on to my own production company, and the eventual result of that was creating Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
That is quite a varied past, literally all over the world. The fact that you were at the Berlin Wall the night it came down is what a crazy, probably happenstance for you to be there. Because, I mean, it wasn't like it was something that was predicted, obviously.
No,
you probably know that.
Actually, we were there because there had been such change going on in the East Bloc. And so much of it was now centered on East Berlin because Czechoslovakians were using a loophole in the law to leave their country and then go through East Germany or East Berlin to get to the West. So,
Okay.
and I had been covering the revolutions since the beginning, running our local coverage on the ground in many cases. One of my Emmys is for the Romanian Revolution. So this was no surprise. And we had Brokaw there that night. I mean, we were doing the entire show, nightly news, from the Brandenburg Gate. It was kind of astonishing when shortly before news time, one of the photographers ran into the production trailer and said to me, "They're streaming out." And I said, pardon my French, bullshit. I've been working on the other side of the wall for years. They don't come streaming out. And he said, "Well, look at this." And he opened the viewfinder on his camera and played some tape back. And they were streaming out. And it turned out that East Germany, East Berlin in particular, just said, "Okay, fine. You want out? Go. Get out." And it was a hell of a show. And at 2 a.m, I walked with a crew through Checkpoint Charlie and back into the East. And this is a way,
Wow.
I had done this for years, but for years it was like a spy movie where you stopped at the guardhouse and they ran the mirrors under your car and they opened the trunk and sometimes they pulled out the back seat. And in this case, it was deserted and we just walked through it in the middle of the night. So it was a pretty remarkable event.
I would say so. That's incredible. Just the thought of, being there for that. I mean, I wasn't even born at the time, but just,
child,
yeah, I'm a minor, totally amateur kind of history nut. So I like to read things about stuff. So I've read, plenty of stuff about it, but to hear somebody actually on the ground that night, that's incredible.
Well, why? The pictures, the video of all those Germans dancing on top of the wall?
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible for that. I ran over with my crew, with one of our many crews, but I ran over with a ladder so that my crew could get up on the wall to shoot down. And once they went up, a bunch of Germans stole my ladder from me, literally wrestled it away. And everybody was on top of the wall. So it was party time.
Incredible. So how do you go from doing things like that, traveling the globe, in all the different countries you named? I can't even, recite them all back to you. How do you go from that to getting into, the line of industry of food? Like what's the process? How does that happen? What goes on to do that for you?
First of all, it's all storytelling. Secondly, as I approached it, it was all completely factual. And it began, I've always liked food, but when I was first sent to work internationally, it had never occurred to me I would live outside the country. I was, in many respects, woefully unprepared in terms of my knowledge about the various places I was going at first. And I quickly decided that one of the ways to understand a culture is through their cuisine. The Greek meza, shared small plates, is representative of a culture that prizes sociability. The word Epicurean, well, it comes from a philosopher named Epicurus, who famously wrote that when you're choosing to have dinner, it's essential to first choose who you will dine with before you choose what you're going to have to eat or wear, because to dine alone is to live the life of a wolf. Or Tuscany. So many Tuscan dishes are built around wild boar. Well, when you dig into that, it's because Tuscany was traditionally a very, very poor region of Italy. And if you were going to eat, you were going to have to hunt. And the locally available animal to hunt was a wild boar. And on in different countries and places. And by the time I got back to the States, when I was sent back to be a show producer, I had a pretty deep curiosity and interest in all things culinary, and especially the roots of the food. So that when I finally left Network News and moved on and opened my own production company, that interest was already in my head. Now, I didn't say to myself, I'm going to do food television. What I did say to myself is, I want to make enough money to eat. And I was not booking any work as a production company. So I called a friend of mine, Al Roker, who had technically worked for me on the Weekend Today show before he was on the main show. And he had a production company, still does. And I said, "Hey, I'm starving. You got any work you could send me?" And he said, "Sure." And started subcontracting some of his Food Network stuff to me. So I was able to begin honing my food TV skills. And we both understood that I wasn't going to get rich by being a paid contractor for someone else's production company. So eventually I started pitching the Food Network on my own. And they were kind. They knew me now, so they talked to me, but everything was no. No, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, no. Finally, it was all to one executive. And one day I'm on the phone with her and she says, I think out of pity and exasperation, she said, "Do you have anything about diners?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm developing a show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives." And she said, "Well, that sounds interesting. We have a development meeting Tuesday. Get me a write-up on Monday." And this was late on a Thursday or Friday. And I got off the phone, pleased that she had shown some interest, but facing a challenge now because I was not developing a show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. I had just pulled the name out of thin air, or if you wish, a bodily orifice. So I had I had the weekend to call around the country and figure it out. I submitted a proposal for a 1-hour special on Monday. They had their meeting Tuesday. Shortly thereafter, they picked it up. And now I was in the food TV business. Now, they didn't pick it up as a series. They picked it up as a special
Okay.
because Guy Fieri had just won their Food Network Star Contest. And to date, he's the only winner who's ever become a star. But back then, they thought this was the way they were going to mill future stars. So they wanted to get Guy a primetime show, and they wanted the audience not to forget him. So they asked some major league production companies to pitch a primetime show. And they figured this special would, keep him in front of the public for a while. Well, the special did well. And they did not like the pitches from the big boy production companies. So they figured they'd take a gamble. And they ordered a short season 1 of Diners. And it struck a chord with the public, which still didn't mean they had any faith in it. I remember an executive telling me after the first few episodes had been a hit, "Don't get too excited because we don't figure you got more than, 1 or 2 seasons. There just aren't enough restaurants." I stayed with it as EP for the first 11 seasons. They're now in season 40-something. So perhaps their initial assessment was incorrect.
Maybe just a little bit, right? I mean, I just pulled up the Wikipedia page, and yeah, you're pretty close. Season 39 was 2023 to 2024 here. So, yeah, I think they missed on there's not going to be enough restaurants.
Well, but see,
I
that's so indicative of television. And movies. William Goldman, double Oscar-winning screenwriter, one of the greatest screenwriters in the history of Hollywood. He did Butch Cassidy, he did All the President's Men, he did The Princess Bride. He's written a number of books about Hollywood, and in his first book called Adventures in the Screen Trade, he lays out Goldman's rule, which relates to why some things get picked up, why they don't, why studios or networks believe in something or don't. And his rule was quite simply, no one knows anything.
and then they don't like to admit that too on top of it,
No,
right?
of course not, but that's okay.
So take me to that weekend. You've pitched Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Gosh, I can't speak today.
It's okay.
You pull the name out of your ass, and then you go home that weekend. What's
Well,
your
my office
initial
was
thought?
in my home. I didn't have to go very far.
So you didn't have to go anywhere, at least. So you took one step out of the process. So
Mhm.
what's your initial thoughts? Are you like, oh gosh, what have I done? Or you just immediately have ideas coming to you?
Now, look, I was a network breaking news producer for years. There's never what have I done. When someone says, can you do this? You say yes, and then you figure out why. I mean, one of my favorite stories from my time overseas was trying to visualize life behind the Berlin Wall. And so one day I got up, my favorite correspondent had a severe hangover. So I went on my own with a translator. went through Checkpoint Charlie, started knocking on doors of apartment buildings in East Berlin that faced the wall, the last buildings in the edge of the city. Finally got the Lukowski family. They opened their door. We talked a little bit, and we did a story about life behind the wall. And then after the wall opened, we did a story about life after the wall that featured the kids in the first one bouncing the soccer ball off the damn Berlin Wall. And in the second one, running through the leftover pieces of that wall to chase the ball. So the concept of figuring out how to make television was not scary. Plus, at this point, I had been turned down for so many shows. I figured this was going to be another futile exercise, so there was no risk. And I went to work. Look, I'd been an investigative journalist for years. I knew how to find things and people. And I just started calling around the country looking for places that would fit the bill, that were a geographical variety and a culinary variety. And, I got a tiny diner in Linden, New Jersey, across from an oil refinery. I got what else did we have in that first show? Breakfast joint in Minneapolis that was built on what had been an alleyway between two buildings. It was so narrow that they only had a counter, and people would line up behind the people at the counter waiting to grab a seat. We ended up doing a little drive-in Italian place, just the sorts of places that fit the mandate. And, I did my job, basically, is what I did.
So it just, in the way you explained that, it sounds to me like you just kind of took the investigative journalist kind of mindset that you had from your previous work and kind of just transferred it to diners, drive-ins, thought.
Any search for facts ought to be investigative by nature. They've got this title, investigative reporter, and yes, news organizations define it. So if that's your job, that's your job. But basically, I've always looked on journalism as go find out some true stuff. And I applied the same standard. Look, when I was doing diners, I applied the same fact-checking standards to it that I applied to 2020's investigative unit. Everything you say in this, A, must be true, B, must be provable fact. It was that simple. Now, people in the reality industry thought I was nuts because I did that. I had my first hire as senior producer came with great credits, but early on, she tried to use a Frankenbite, which is where you take sentences people said and you edit them together in ways that change the meaning, which is a standard thing in reality, but not in my universe. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And she said, you're crazy. And then she went home and got drunk and called me up and said a bunch of awful things. And I said, well, I'll accept that as your resignation. And the next day she tried to rescind it, but no. So we moved on.
Do you have a favorite episode, favorite restaurant you went to, or a couple that really jumped to mind? I mean, I've seen, I can't tell you how many, but many of the episodes, and they're all so cool. I'd have to imagine it's hard to pick.
Well, thank you. The episode I preferred is the wrong word. The episode that struck my heart best. I live in New Jersey. At the time of the episode, I think we had our beach house in New Jersey. We were still living in Minnesota, but I love Jersey. And Jersey is the home of diners. There are more diners in New Jersey than any place else, even though the number is declining even here. And we did a special on Jersey diners where instead of doing 3 places, I guess we were doing in the average show at the time. Instead of doing 3 places, we did like 7. And we had like 2 breakfasts and then 2 lunches and then 2 dinners and then a late night visit to a kind of nouveau diner that serves martinis. I loved that episode. It was, first of all, true diner people are just the best. They are that is the mom and pop homemade food American dream scenario. Secondly, to do this in a low margin business, you really got to give a damn about making people happy. And
Mm-hmm.
diner people do. And I love diner food. People think of diners, if you live in a non-dinery place, the name evokes Greasy Spoon. It's not Greasy Spoon. It's scratch cooking. And that's great.
Yeah, I mean, nothing better than scratch cooking. And I have a college roommate from New Jersey. And every
North
time
or
we
South
went to,
Jersey? Where's he from? Does he call it pork roll or Taylor ham?
he calls it pork roll. He's from South Amboy
Yeah,
originally.
That's North Jersey.
I was going to say, I
South
think it's more
Amboy
on the north
is
side.
actually the New York area.
Yes, yeah, it's not very far from there at all.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
it
it's
was
still Jersey. It's still okay. We still count it.
many of the meals we had there were in diners when I go to
What's
visit
the
them.
best? And look, not everything is homemade at every place, but if you get the right diner, they're making their own corned beef hash. It's a special thing. And if you're a regular, you get to know the staff. There's a diner near me where I walk in and the waitress puts down an iced coffee and says, "Same thing," and I go, "Same thing," and she goes and makes my omelet. Well, the chef makes my omelet, but only now, after fighting a thankfully successful battle with type 2 diabetes, I have to say, hold the hash browns.
Oh, it's too bad. Hash browns are the best.
It's a goddamn shame.
You mentioned that you lived in Minnesota, and this kind of takes me to one of the topics that I was really excited to talk to you about was pizza. And I saw in your profile, you're like, any question about pizza is good. So I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania, so within close enough range to New York City
close enough to Old Forge Pizza.
Yeah, not very far from there as well. So, yeah. I mean, between Old Forge Pizza, it felt like every little town in, even upstate New York and northeastern Pennsylvania, all the way kind of up and down the seaboard, there's a good little pizza restaurant somewhere in town. And you can get a good slice. And it's not, it's not New York City quality, but it's still pretty good.
Well, first of all, you live in Wisconsin?
I live in Wisconsin now.
Good luck with
there's
pizza.
There's no good pizza to be found. No. the Midwest and the upper Midwest.
But how close are you to the Twin Cities? Because there's some good pizza there.
About 4 hours.
Oh, well, it's a long drive for one pizza. You should go stay over. Well, first of all, understand that pizza spread across America following mass migration of Southern Italians to the East Coast in the 1800s. So places like Philly, New York, Boston were there at the beginning. New York more than anything else. But and then it spread across the country and evolved, and you ended up with unique regional styles. I mean, it's interesting. For my podcast, I interviewed Tony Gemignani just yesterday. Tony, one of the leading pizza makers in the country. He's won 16 international pizza championships, including the top prize in Naples, where he said, "I grabbed the trophy and I was afraid someone was going to kill me as I tried to get out of town." But talking to Tony, he brought up Old Forge Pizza, which I included in my book, Food Americana, which is a unique deep dish oblong pizza that includes brick cheese, I think some cheddar, and is done in both red and white varieties. I actually prefer the white, but they're both great. And as Tony said, look, Old Forge Pizza violates every rule of how you're taught how to make pizza. But if you get it, it's great. Just like St. Louis pizza is made with a processed cheese called Provel, which has liquid smoke in it. That's not New York pizza, but it's great. Detroit pizza done well is great. I mean, I draw the line at pineapple and ham, but I'm even open to the West Coast variants where they made frou-frou pizza. Pizza is such an American food now because from the time it first got here, it changed pretty substantially from what it was in Naples. The ovens were different. The flour was different. the availability to the impoverished of items like meat was much greater in New York than it was in Naples or Sicily. So right off the bat, we were evolving pizza to our own styles and tastes, which is not to say there are not places doing pizzas as done in Italy. I mean, a good Neapolitan. There are a lot of places making a good Neapolitan, but it's not what most people expect. A Neapolitan is not crispy. It is moist. It is even soupy. And it degrades. You can't deliver one of those because it degrades instantly. And a lot of people don't like that. I mean, Chris Bianco, one of the leading pizza guys in the United States, told me at Pizzeria Bianco in Phoenix, he doesn't make a Neapolitan because he doesn't like it. It's too soupy for him. What he makes is a similar version of a margarita, which is Neapolitan, in the style of the region his folks came from, or his grandparents, Puglia, which is a crisper pizza. That's how he likes it. That's how he makes it. But he doesn't call it a Neapolitan, which a lot of places do. That's a long tangent. Where was I going?
We were just talking about
What the
pizza in
hell?
general and how I was complaining that there's no good pizza in the upper Midwest.
Well, but see, that's also, you should eat what's good where you are. I live on the Jersey Shore. I eat a tremendous amount of scallops because the ones that are boat, and there's a fishing port where I live. These boats ply the East Coast waters from Delaware up into Canada and bring back the finest scallops on the face of the earth. And when I go to a restaurant during tourist season here, which isn't a lot, but you see these tourists, these out-of-towners, eating fried shrimp. We don't produce shrimp here. Those shrimp probably came from Indonesia or Vietnam. There's my beagle. And you're ignoring the opportunity to eat one of the great food items on earth, or frankly, the tilefish or the monkfish, or in August, the fresh tuna. Pardon me, I'm getting a treat for my dog. The fresh tuna that
I'm
comes
surprised mine
into
hasn't
this
joined
port.
us either.
You should eat what's here. If I was in Wisconsin, I'd certainly go heavy on dairy. I'd go for traditional Germanic influenced foods like Sauerbraten. I'd go for fried walleye. I'd love to find a supper club that throwback to the 40s and 50s with a very Midwestern meal and a martini. Eat what
Those usually aren't too hard to find in
No, they're
Wisconsin.
not.
You can usually find a number of
Yeah,
those, and they are fantastic.
Eat what is endemic to where you are, and if you don't know what that is, ask someone. What'd your mom make here cooking? It's
do a
so
lot
simple.
of traveling for work across about 15 different states, from out to the Dakotas down to Kansas, Missouri, over to about Ohio, and there's plenty of times when I'm lazy and there's a Texas Roadhouse next door, and I'll go do that.
Oh,
But
shame
I try
on you.
and
Shame on
I'll
you.
admit it.
Good
I
God,
do try
sir.
and
So you're
say to
traveling to
the
Kansas City and you're not going to Oklahoma Joe. I guess it's now just called Joe's or Kansas City
when I
Joe's
go to Kansas
barbecue.
City, I go get barbecue. That's
And
for
what do you
sure. I
get
do always.
what do you get in Kansas? Where are you in Kansas?
I'm in Southwest Kansas usually when I'm
That's
down
you.
there. A little town called Garden City.
I know Garden City.
There's
I worked in Wichita years and years and years
okay.
ago. So I don't know what the agriculture around Garden City is.
There's a local steakhouse that's
Pretty
hard
good.
to beat. I mean,
There
there's
was
plenty of beef raising around there.
Yeah, when I lived in Wichita, and again, this was literally in the 70s, there was a local restaurant called the Chateaubriand, which that was their specialty, that massive steak. And I don't know back then if they got it from, Cisco or US Foods, but to a 20-something-year-old working on the radio, that was a hell of a meal.
Tough to go wrong with a good ribeye in my estimation, but
well,
everybody has their own.
Well, it's fascinating.
Taste,
I
right?
had this conversation with some friends yesterday. I'm not a ribeye guy. I mean, I'll eat it. It's a good cut of meat. But for me, too much fat, and I know fat is flavor, but too much fat, you're paying for the bone. I go for a strip. I like a New York strip. But What
I
I'm
won't
doing,
complain about a strip either.
what I'm doing these days, and have been for the past year, is I'm doing the reverse sear. Are you familiar with that?
I
I
am.
mean,
That's the only way I'll cook a
yeah,
steak.
because it's as close to sous vide as you can
Hmm.
get. And, look, to anyone who doesn't know what it is, when you regularly cook a steak at a high temperature, either in the oven or on top of the burner, let's say in a cast iron pan, which everyone says you should do, what you really are doing is you're turning the outside portion of that steak to well done. Because to get to the inside of the meat, you've got to burn the hell out of the outside. Reverse sear cooks the steak slowly at a low temperature, and you end up with pink from side to side. Then you take it out, you
Hmm.
throw it into a pan very quickly to get some searing, but you end up with a steak that is whatever doneness you want uniformly from side to side.
Yep.
We made ribeye, not ribeyes, strip steaks a couple of nights ago from a good butcher. You got to have a good butcher, and it's just like heaven. Salt, pepper, goodbye, thank you. It's that
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. I always say wall to wall pinkness is what I'm looking for when I do my reverse sear. I want it, like you said, you don't like to see that, the strip of,
Ah, no.
of that tan around the outside.
The place you want to see a ring around the outside is barbecue. You want to see a little red ring around the
Hmm.
outside of the meat. I don't know chemically what that is. I should find out. But that
They
that
call it
is
the
often a
smoke ring,
sign.
right?
I think it is a smoke ring,
I
but
think
I've
that
never.
I barbecue is beyond me. I know I like the taste of it. The thought of cooking it is something I've stayed away from. Like there's people who can do that much better than I can.
Barbecue. Look, barbecue is not grilling. Barbecue is a particular kind of cooking, and it now embraces everything. I mean, theoretically, barbecue was low and slow open coal cooking of whole animals. We've moved a long way from that. Most barbecue is still low and slow, but some of the most famous is not. I mean, you go to the Rendezvous in Memphis, which is legendary for their ribs. Those are cooked hot and fast in a converted coal chute over uh, a high flame. They're great. When I make ribs at home, and I can't uh, match, the Rendezvous, but I turn the oven to 500. I throw them in. 20 minutes later, I take them out. That's salt, pepper, and some cumin, but that's
Hmm.
all I do. And if you're buying, especially a St. Louis cut with a lot of fat, it bastes itself and everything's hunky dory.
Might have to try that now.
Yeah,
You've
go to
opened my eyes to a new thought.
just get yourself a rack, turn that oven up to 500, make sure it's blazing hot, salt, pepper, cumin, throw it in, count to 20 minutes, take it out.
That sounds kind of idiot proof. I might even be able to pull that off.
The vast majority of good real cooking is idiot proof. I do a lot of high heat cooking. I cook a whole chicken at 500. Again, salt and pepper. But what I do with the chicken, when I put it in the oven, I put it in a skillet and I pour an inch or two of chicken stock into the skillet so the chicken doesn't dry
Okay.
out. It keeps ingesting the liquid.
Yep.
At that heat, you get a crispy skin. It's wonderful.
Interesting. Might have to try that too. You're really opening my eyes to some things
Hey,
here
tonight
today.
I'm making sausage and peppers, only I'm not making it in a pan in olive oil the traditional way. I'm making it on a grill sheet so that it's on wire and the drippings fall below. And I put the peppers and the onions, I marinate them in olive oil briefly, but I put those on. And after they're starting to get soft, I put the coil of, I'm having it again from my butcher, a great pork sausage with cheese in it, which you guys know.
Mm.
Well, you guys know sausage and cheese. Throw that on the pan, and when it's all done, that's it. It's all you need.
Sounds good too. Um, we got a little bit away. I had a nice segue when we were talking about pizza. We got off on a
We'll go
little
back to
different
okay, and pizza. You
little
can
angle here, but
cook pizza on a grill. They do that in Rhode Island.
hmm that was when you were talking about pizza and how it's evolved from
Mm-hmm.
when it first came over. One of the other things you talked about was Americanizing different dishes and different cuisines. Chinese, Italian,
Mm-hmm.
whatever else it may be. What is that? is there a phenomenon behind that's something we should stay away from? Like
No,
when pizza gets Americanized, like are we missing the boat, or is it just a different avenue of
it's
those great?
different. The word I hate the most in food is authentic. The term I will use is as served in the mother country. Okay. Chinese food in America is, for the most part, not as it is served in China. It is the Americanized version of Cantonese cuisine, because the first Chinese to come to the U.S. came from Canton, to gold mine in the gold rush in California. And among the Chinese who came over at that time were support staff, if you will, people who opened restaurants and stores to sell stuff to the Chinese workers. And from that, their cuisine evolved as they realized there was a potential market for Americans to eat this stuff, but Americans were not going to eat the entrails that were so popular in Chinese cuisine and in so many cuisines. I mean, we're one of the few cuisines that is wasteful enough to say we're not going to use every part of the animal. So the premise of my book, Food Americana, is that we created our own cuisine by taking from and modifying the cuisines of other countries and cultures, Chinese food, Mexican food. And all of those, Mexican American is a legitimate cuisine. Chinese American is a legitimate cuisine. Italian American is a legitimate cuisine. They're not the same as Chinese food as eaten in China. Although all cuisines evolve. I mean, one of the most popular foods in China among young people in recent years is scrambled eggs and tomatoes cooked in a wok. If you said to someone, well, what do you think authentic Chinese food is? They wouldn't tell you scrambled eggs. So all food evolves over time, and it also evolves based on available ingredients. It bugs me when people are apologetic for enjoying the Americanized version of something. And, our food goes elsewhere as well. First time I worked in Vienna, I said to our local translators, when we're done with this story, I want you to take me to your favorite restaurant. They said, sure. I figured, we'd get Spätzle or Schnitzel or something. They took me to a Texas ribs joint.
Now, in other countries, if you've had the experience or any knowledge, do you see American food, the foods we'd consider, American, go to those countries and have the same kind of effect where it becomes an American food with a French style to it, or a German, or not so much?
It depends where it's going. And to be quite honest, the best examples of American cuisine don't go elsewhere. American chain pizza is now available worldwide, but it is seen as an American dish, not an Italian dish. Mm-hmm. Some American sushi, which is for the most part bigger and goopier than sushi as served in Japan, is now available internationally, but I don't think it's seen as particularly Japanese. Our biggest influence on international eating has unfortunately been fast food. And, when I lived in Budapest, McDonald's had just opened up, and it was the place to go. When you're on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, I don't recall if there's a McDonald's there, but there's certainly a huge Burger King that does just a killer business. And, that's when you say to someone, what's American food? They'll tell you hot dogs and hamburgers. Yeah, we like hot dogs. We like hamburgers. Hot dogs and hamburgers both descending from German cuisine, but nonetheless, our cuisine is much broader than that. Lobster rolls, for example, are now available all over the country because of the processing plants that pick and freeze lobster immediately. And
I actually do have a little knowledge on lobster. I worked in a lobster distribution company just outside Washington, D.C. for about a year out of college.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, a few years ago, Down East Magazine in Maine held a competition for the best lobster roll in America, and it was won by Freshies in Salt Lake City. Now, full disclosure, the husband and wife who owned the place came from Massachusetts, but still, there are now syndicated franchise lobster trucks all across the country. And look, it's still not as good as a fresh lobster roll eaten on a dock in Kennebunkport, but it ain't bad.
Yeah. Yeah, the company I work for, we were bringing fresh lobsters from Maine down to the DC
From Maine
area.
to Canada. Maine?
Mostly Maine. There were some times when you had to get some Canadian, but the idea was all Maine. If it could all be
the
done
whole
right.
lobster spawning area is moving north because of the warming of American waters. Hold on 1 minute while I close the door so that the singing of my beagle does not provide a continuous soundtrack.
Not a problem.
I'll keep talking if you're not going to edit. What else you want to know? Hey.
No, I was going to say, you talked about fast food and kind of how prevalent it is in other countries, our American fast food. And it's, I travel a lot. I'm probably driving 40-some thousand miles a year, and I try my best to stay away from it. But sometimes, you get in the middle of nowhere and you haven't eaten in a few hours and you're like, McDonald's is right there.
Wait, hold on. Let's acknowledge one other thing. We've been raised with fast food, and at a particular moment on a particular day, a fast food burger is perfect. Now,
I'm not saying I don't enjoy it. I just
eat it
love
every
it for the
day of the
waistline.
week. But see, for me, well, there's two levels of fast food. The fast food available everywhere. For me, you drive through Burger King for a Whopper Jr., then you drive through McDonald's for the fries, because the burgers are better at Burger King. Burger King, the fries are better at McDonald's. Now, in a perfect world, you go to In-N-Out, which you can only get in California, and I think they're starting to expand a little bit. But now, is that an incredible burger? I think so. When we were shooting in California last, we had them like every night. But I don't really know if they're that great or if it's their inaccessibility that makes it special. Back before you were born, Coors did not distribute beer east of the Rockies. And that made Coors, if you got it smuggled in, very special. But once it became available, it occurred to many of us that Coors is a shitty beer.
Well, I have a lot of my friends, whenever I drive somewhere near them, they're like, "Oh, get me a case of Spotted Cow." I was like, I can get you a case of much better beer than Spotted Cow. Yeah, it's just that's the one that's become popular for some reason.
So much of it is random. So much of, like, why did PBR, Pabst Blue Ribbon, become hipster cool for a while? Because some hipster decided to try it and put it on his Instagram or his TikTok or whatever. And, so much of food trends has nothing to do with the taste or quality of the food. It has to do with hipness. And I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah, it is funny when things like that, you try something and you're like, man, I know everybody loves this, or at least they say they do, but I don't see it.
Well, look, at the risk of being shot, I feel that way about the Barbie movie and the 12-hour-long Something of the Flower Moon. I lasted 20 minutes into that, so.
I haven't got to that one yet. I'm working on watching that one here sometime.
I had lunch with a friend of mine a few weeks ago who lives in Buenos Aires. He was up in New York, and we're sitting at lunch. He goes, "Did you watch that Scorsese film?" I said, "I lasted literally about 40 minutes." He said, "Good, so did I." And that was that.
Yeah, I've struggled with being able to carve out, like, the 3.5, and I'm like, by the time I need to stop and go to the bathroom and make food for myself, I'm like, I need to put 44 hours out of my day to watch it.
Yeah,
so I've just been struggling to get there.
Not to be a mean movie critic, but by the time I stopped watching that movie, the real plot I'd read about hadn't even started yet. Anyway.
I think this part got cut off when we had our little technical difficulty the first time. But
okay.
You mentioned stadium food. In sports stadiums, is there a particular area that you found that has better stadium food? Is there any one place in the country that you found that has the best, or is it kind of like a regional thing where they've all got their delicacies?
It's for the most part a regional thing. For the most part, it's better in cities that are known for a food culture. I think it's Seattle. I think at Mariners games you can get deep fried grasshoppers. Meantime, I'm sure that at County Stadium you can get a hell of a brat.
Yeah.
At Fenway, I'm sure you can get a lobster roll these days. There is, I hate to use this word, but quote, gourmet, unquote, food available at pretty much every stadium, usually skewed toward regional specialties. And I would wager that the best-selling item is still a hot dog.
Yeah. We went to a Flyers game just a couple days ago in Chicago, and my wife got a little Giordano's deep dish, and she's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "Just give me a hot dog. I'm gonna have a hot dog. I'm gonna have a couple beers.
Yeah,
I'm
but
gonna
wait,
watch some
hold on.
hockey."
No. That's not fair because Chicago dogs, done in the Chicago style, drag through the garden with celery salt on that terrific poppy seed bun.
Mm-hmm.
That's a special experience. That's not a generic hot dog.
I just got a regular one. Just a hot dog and a little ketchup was all I got. I didn't.
What?
I'm not big on the. I'm not big on the whole Chicago one.
Hold on, time out. You put friggin' ketchup on a hot dog?
I do. Yes, sir.
You should be shot.
What should go on a hot dog then?
Mustard. And then if you want sauerkraut, or a Chicago dog has mustard. It doesn't have ketchup. It's got that
I'm not a
wonderful
Chicago
green.
dog guy. There's too much
I'm
happening.
done. This interview's over. That's it. Forget it. Actually, the best thing in Chicago, of course, is Chicago beef. Italian beef sandwiches. When I worked in Chicago for NBC back in the early 80s, we were in the Merchandise Mart, a classic old building. And about a quarter mile down the street, down Orleans, was Mr. Beef, which is the inspiration for the show The Bear. And
I just saw like a Facebook video about that.
Yeah, every couple of weeks, the entire bureau would get up at noon and walk down to Mr. Beef, and we'd all have either sausages or Chicago Italian beef sandwiches, and we'd sit. There were no seating inside. I think they may have some now, but you'd sit on a picnic table covered with pigeon shit, and you'd have one of the great meals of your life. Oh, it was wonderful. That's a great food town. Yes.
While you mentioned that beef, since you're in the South Jersey, you're a little ways away from it. But do you have a feeling on cheesesteaks, Philly cheesesteaks? And
yeah, I don't eat them. The real Philadelphia dish is not the cheesesteak. It's the roast pork sandwich, which was invented at a place called, I believe it was invented at John's. And what it is, for anyone who doesn't know, is a crusty roll of the same sort that you'd have a cheesesteak on. But onto that roll goes succulent roasted pork, sliced relatively thin, good provolone, and then broccoli rabe that has been sauteed with garlic. Now, originally, it didn't have broccoli rabe. When it was first invented, it was spinach. But broccoli rabe has pretty much become the standard. That is the Philadelphia sandwich. That can be a death row meal. I make that at home frequently. I get a pork tenderloin.
Okay, I was going to say, how do you go with it?
But cheesesteaks tend to be, to my way of thinking, too salty, and the beef doesn't jump out at you. It's okay, so put some whiz on a bun and knock yourself out. It's not. I'll eat it. In fact, I helped judge a cheesesteak competition in the last couple of years, but no, it's the roast pork you want.
That I've heard that many times from people, and I love a roast pork too. I do myself prefer the cheesesteak. Maybe it's the saltiness that I like.
Look,
and
to each his own.
The conglomeration of
what I'm told, or what I've read, is that Geno's and Pat's in Philly are really for out-of-towners, and that many of the locals prefer a place called Jim's.
Mm-hmm. I worked with a guy who was from the Philly area, and he always said D'Alessandro's. He's like, no Geno's, Pat's, D'Alessandro's.
Everybody's got their favorite.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple times here your book.
Yes.
and I read the cover. I didn't get. I've been just kind of crazy with work and stuff. But shoot me a rundown here and kind of walk us through what it's about, because it did sound very interesting.
Well, let's see. Can you see that? There it is.
Yes.
Food Americana. This was my exploration of how we created American cuisine out of the foods of other countries and cultures. And I have chapters on pizza, Mexican, barbecue, fried chicken, sushi, bagels, wings and things, burgers, Chinese, seafood, and ice cream. And I explore the roots of those cuisines as they became part of American cuisine. And I explore what's going on with them today. I take you to various restaurants. I talk to some terrific people who are making terrific food. And I have a recipe at the end of each chapter that comes from one of the restaurants I've talked with. And the research was great. I went to the Memphis in May barbecue championships. I went to pizza school with Tony Geminiani in San Francisco. I rolled up my sleeves. By the way, I was, without a doubt, the dumb kid in the pizza class. Man, making a good pizza the right way is hard. But I put my wife and I put our daughter through 7 years at Columbia University so she could get an MFA, which means I'm so deep in debt, I need every one of your listeners or viewers to purchase 10 or 15 copies of this book. It's Food Americana, and it's on Amazon. And I promise you, I'm proud of it.
Awesome. Wings. You mentioned wings in there. Wings is a soft spot for me. And it's another one that, coming from Northeast Pennsylvania, close enough to Buffalo, it felt like, again, you get a good wing at many of the bars, and the dive bars would all have good wings. And I found some good wings, out here and in the Midwest in general. It feels like that the style of wing I grew up with is a little different, back there. I don't know. That feels very regional to me as well.
Well, that depends completely on who's cooking them. I mean, when I make them at home, I think I'm pretty close to Buffalo. I deep fry them in oil. None of this baked BS. To be good, a wing has to be deep fried in oil. And then it's about the sauce you want to use. I mean, you want to be honest to Buffalo. It's basically Frank's hot sauce and butter.
Yeah, with a little butter, right?
Yeah, well, you got to have the butter. The butter is what makes that, and is probably the item that is being left out when you find yourself with a second-rate wing. But wings are wonderful, done right.
Yeah, there's few things in my life that I think I enjoy more than a dive bar, a dozen wings, and just a light beer. I don't need anything special. A Miller Lite, a Coors Light, a Bud Light, and a dozen wings, and a game on a TV. And there's not much better in my life.
Look, food is a memory issue. The other day, I bought frozen pigs in blankets. Do you know what a pig in a blanket is?
I do.
Little tiny hot dog wrapped in dough. Pigs in blankets have always been a staple at Jewish catered affairs, like receptions for bar mitzvahs. They're just kind of, they're there. And so I have a childhood connection with them. And in fact, you know what? It wasn't even the frozen ones. We were at dinner at a very nice restaurant in New York, my wife and my daughter and I, just the other night. And they had pigs in blankets as an appetizer. And we ordered them. And it was like going back in time. It was fantastic. Now, culinarily, is it a great thing? Not necessarily. Although you could make an argument that basically it is a sausage in a version of dough. What's wrong with that? You dip it in some deli mustard, it's a good thing.
You'll never hear me complain about a pig in a blanket.
There you go.
David, I think we've done close to an hour here now. So I think we've touched on a ton of great stuff here. Is there anything you want to leave us on as we kind of wrap this thing up here?
Yeah, don't go to a chain restaurant if you have a choice. Mom and pop's making better food, providing a real atmosphere, and trying to scrape by on the tightest margin in the world are the people you should be supporting. And there's nothing that says that more than the fact that, like, Applebee's tries to market themselves as your neighborhood pub. They're not. Go find a neighborhood pub. Okay? That's where the good stuff is.
That's a perfect message to end it on. So, David, thank you again. Your book, Food Americana, you can find it on Amazon.
Yep.
So hopefully everybody goes and check that out. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. So, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Right. Hot off a fresh loss here. A tough weekend for us Flyer fans. We're recording this. I don't exactly know when this is making it to the pod because I've got a lot of stuff kind of backed up here. This is Sunday, February 25th. The Flyers have just lost to the Penguins to cap off a weekend of losing to the Rangers and the Penguins. A weekend that I believe Troy told us was crucial. Must win. H-Man, what was it that he was saying to us?
Necessary.
Must win, necessary, all the same thing a bunch. Not the best weekend for our Flyers, guys. Not the best weekend.
The best thing is when you call it a must win or a necessary win. You got more games to win after this. So I think the most positive thing I'll take from this weekend is, like, the Flyers are back, man. They're playing meaningful games. We're watching. They're playing division rivals tight. 2 one-goal games this weekend, and they're in it. They still got a cushion. I think we're fine. We're fine.
Granted that the Flyers-Penguins rivalry isn't what it used to be, right? It's not like the days of Giroux and Voracek where guys are running around trying to take each other's heads off. But still, these 2 games this weekend were very tight, very well-played games, except for the goaltending in today's game. Obviously, I mean, that was a big factor. But again, very, very good games, I thought. But they walked away with 0 points on the weekend, which, if you're trying to push and hold that third playoff spot like the Flyers are trying to do, you can't do that. You gotta get some points this weekend, and they failed to do that.
Yeah. Yes, Troy, you raised your hand.
No, we're up 5. Still got 5 points.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats here. I was going to say, we are still up 5. We've played one more game than the Devils. But the Devils, I just don't see the Devils minus 12 in the differential. Like, they're not, like, playing great hockey. So I don't know. It felt like a missed opportunity this weekend because they had the Rangers, who are playing some great hockey. They've won their last 10 games. They had them on the ropes for a lot of that game. They gave up fucking 7 goals today and only lost by 1. Like, yeah. I don't know. These felt like pretty golden opportunities that, hey, again, this is the rebuild year, right? Like, we're still in the rebuild.
Exactly. If you would have told me, so what, we recorded last, in November, 1st November?
Something
and
like
we were all talking about, like, we were looking at playoff odds, and it was like this, that, and the other thing. Like, we're watching meaningful hockey now coming into the last week of February into March. Danny Briere doesn't know what the hell to do because, do you sell guys? Do you try to take a run and win a playoff round? Like, this is a great spot to be in. It's basically, like, free for us, for fans. And then it also, like, instills a bunch of trust in being like, hey, like, maybe they're doing this thing right. They got some good guys in place. We got some guys coming in. Like, I love it. Like, I wore a jersey today in my house to watch a game. Like, we're back. We're back.
We need to say that every time you are back, that the Flyers go on like a 4 or 5 game losing streak.
Yeah, big skid coming up.
I mean, their next couple games aren't like easy games. Like the Lightning, they do have the Caps and then the Senators, so nothing crazy with those two. But like they do have to play the Lightning next, so
Lightning
there's a real easy 3-game stretch.
Home on Tuesday, I think. Yeah.
Yep, home on Tuesday.
Then they get them again later in March in Tampa. They've got 2 games against the Bruins coming up, another one against the Rangers coming up. They've got a tough stretch coming, and it'll be interesting.
They got the Hurricanes in late March. They have the Panthers.
Right. They're gonna play the Hurricanes in the first round of the playoffs. They're gonna beat them.
The only problem is, I mean, okay, that would have been fine when you had the tandem of Carter Hart and Sam Ersson. But now that Carter Hart's out of the picture for other reasons, now that you've put Pettersson or possibly Felix Sandstrom into the picture, like, who knows what you're going to get out of your second goalie. So it's not, they don't have a defined number one now that you've lost Carter Hart. And I think that's what hurts them the most.
Hey, I'm new here, but I'm going to argue a little bit on defined number one. He's been balling.
Sam Ersson?
Yeah, Sam Ersson.
Oh, yeah, he's the number one. He's the number one. And I think
he was and again, I'm an idiot. Like, I don't know shit about hockey. But, like, he was looking like he was better than Hart, like, when they were both playing.
Early on, yeah. In looking back, like, whatever happened with Carter Hart, like, happened, right? But with him trying to deal with playing a professional sport and dealing with everything that's going on, like, damn, like, the fact that he was able to play games, knowing that he was probably going to get arrested, and they were still putting him in the goal on a nightly basis, like, was actually kind of crazy. And then once he got taken away, like, the team kind of fell apart for those 4 or 5 games, and
yeah. Then they went like a little run after that. Yeah, correct. I think that was the first time this year you were in, by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe. But I think, Sam Ersson's there to stay, and they have like all these like fucking Russian guys who are out there waiting in the wings as like these goalie draft picks and stuff. So they were obviously, I think planning everything that I read. They're like planning for Carter Hart's kind of dismissal, right? And they have these guys out here, and
I think they're in a one guy dude got swept up by the Red Army. They wouldn't let him leave Russia, dude. He got taken into a white van, and no one they're like, okay, you got to play for the Red Army team, man. What was his name? What was that guy?
Fedotov.
Yeah, Ivan Fedotov.
He's over there.
He was trying to come back. He signed his contract with the Flyers. They took a picture of him signing his contract. He was like, "Yep, I'm coming over." And all of a sudden, they see him he's getting pushed into a white van by like 5 guys, and they're like, "Yeah, he's gonna stay here for a while."
He's in the Donbass region right now,
wielding a Kalashnikov
in the Gulag.
I didn't have much success in the Gulag today, in case you guys were wondering. Played a little Warzone this morning. I got wiped out in the Gulag. Oh, shit, what was it? Oh, they did all this weekend. They did without Konechny too. Like that's something that should be remembered. Like Konechny gets injured. Friday in practice was the story that came out. Maybe
ran into Mark Stahl.
Dude, that fucking guy. I'm pissed that Drysdale got hurt today, because now we got to deal with some other, like, whatever happened to Drysdale didn't look good. But with that happening, now we got to deal with, like, other fucking guys this year, like Mark Stahl. And I mean, Zamula is, I think, decent, but damn.
Well, Drysdale seemed to have, like, put a nice...
It's like a calming presence.
Yeah, like a good calming presence to the back line, and like...
Yep. And he's
really
a guy
kind of settled it down and like allowed other things to flow off of it.
Could play a lot of minutes
on him. Yep.
But I mean, so Mark Stahl, guy's 37 years old. They brought him in on a 1-year deal, kind of be that veteran presence to all these young guys, Cam York, Igor Zamula. And now the fact that Stahl injured Konechny, and now you got Drysdale out. They don't have that number one defined D-man either, and that's an area where they're struggling. And you can look at Travis Sanheim and be like, yeah, he's your number one. But even Travis Sanheim on most top-end playoff contending teams, he might be a third pairing or second pairing at best. I think that's an area that the Flyers struggle in, for sure.
Is Mark Stahl like a Penguins agent? Like planted?
Could be. Dude, think about it. Jordan Stahl played with him for, 10 years?
I don't know. And he plays for the Hurricanes, so you never know.
Yeah.
Hot take. So I think outlook on the Flyers, this is like,
they're at
I
least
mean,
a year ahead of schedule, right?
yes, and this is a gift, right? If they make the playoffs and we get to watch hockey into April, like late April, that'll be awesome because just the experience that it gets these guys like coming in, we're in a great place, and I think the fan, like, you look at the games they're playing at home and like people are showing up and buying tickets, and it's just great to see people in the building. Like, I can't wait to go in another month. We're going to a game, Hunter.
Yeah.
And just like meaningful hockey is like so awesome. Like, I haven't been to a game since COVID when they had like a third of the capacity and it was a joke. So like, it's just a win-win for Philly fans. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say.
I was just gonna say,
they locked Konechny up for a while recently.
Oh
here
yeah,
too.
he'll be there, and they gave him an A, and they got Couturier, who's there for however long, like next 8 years,
7 more years or something like that, right?
Yeah, he's my age, and I just feel like a moron watching him because it was funny because he came into the league and I was 18 when I went to college, and I was like, holy shit, this guy's my age, and now he's like the captain of the team, and I'm like struggling to just do shit around the house, and he's still out there. He's like now captain of the team. So, but I wanted to hear about your first NHL experience. I know you were down in Chicago for that.
Yeah, so you guys were fucking with me because I didn't get there for warmies, as you were telling me, and that it was a rookie move, but it was just a disaster getting there because Chicago sucks. Like, it's awful. So I picked the roommate up from work at 2:52, and we are hammered down on the way down there. I'm driving aggressively on the way down, and I'm making good time. And we get to 16 miles from our hotel, and the shitty thing was we had to drive past the arena, past the United Center to get to the hotel, and then come back. And we were 16 miles out, and it was just fucking red lights. And it took us an hour to go the last 16 miles. Like, we could have, had there been no traffic, we would have made it there in like an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. And it took us like 2.5, 2:45, something in that range.
Cool.
And we get to the hotel, we take our bags up. The roommate changes real quick, and like, we leave. And we get there, and like, you know, we get in, and luckily they had moved. So it was a TNT game. So instead of being a 7 o'clock puck drop, you know, it's listed as 6:30, but TNT takes forever to get into the game. So luckily it's like 6:45 before puck drop. So we can get into the arena, grab some beers, grab a hot dog, and like get to the seats. But it was sweet, man. Like, that was my first NHL game ever. The way I compare it is, like, if you go to a football game, like, football games are fun to go to, and like, they're fun to do like once in a while, but like, the viewing experience is way better at home. Like, if you're at a football game, like, the experience of being there is sweet, but like, actually watching the play,
100%
way better. Like, being at home. Like, being in the stadium is cool and fun and stuff like that, but if you're like really just interested in watching football, like, it's way better to watch it on TV.
Yeah.
Watching hockey in person is
awesome.
way better in person. Like, it's sick. And like, you get to see things that like you don't really notice on TV. Like, the thing I really noticed was the way you saw dudes like heads moving, like in person. Like, they're coming down the ice and their heads are like, oh, they're looking this way, they're looking that way. Like, they're just like, and they're fucking flying around the ice.
Dude, it is so fast.
And I had been to a Wisconsin hockey game earlier this year, and they're pretty good this year. Like, I think at the time I went, they were ranked 2 in the nation. And I think right now they're ranked like 6 or 7 or something like that. And that was cool. But like, the difference between that and a pro hockey game is so different. Like,
different level.
The speed, like the way they're like looking around the ice and like trying to find the puck and like all that was sick, man.
And like, it's such a small space, and there's 10 guys out there flying. And like, as soon as you get the puck, like, you could get smoked. Like, they're just like, viewing that in person, like, it's totally different than watching it on TV. Like, on TV, it's like, oh yeah, like, here they go, and can't really see the puck, and like, But then in person, like there's guys flying around and hitting the boards and falling over, and like it's just crazy.
The hits you don't see on TV that you see in person too.
Oh yeah,
like the hits that like get out of like the camera frame, like the puck starts going this way, and you catch like somebody like you can see like someone kind of gets hit like off on the side, and like when you're there, and because you told me you're like, dude, just sit on the one end instead of sitting in the upper deck like in the middle, sit on the end that the Flyers shoot at twice. And we kind of got fucked in the third period because it got dominated by Chicago.
They went into like shell mode.
Yeah. But like that first period, like the puck would start going the other way, and someone would just get laid the fuck out like up the boards, and it'd be like, God damn, it was sweet.
Yeah, I mean,
if
even
Chicago wasn't such a clusterfuck to get to, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to a game there every year. I still may go to one every year, like once a year. I could probably deal with that. Yeah. I wish Minneapolis was a little closer to me. Because
that's
like
such 4 hours.
Yeah, it's such an easier city to navigate though, and like you can get to places in like stay in a hotel in Minneapolis and like get into their like their inside walks, and like never have to be outside and just like walk through like these like pathways that like go from like hotels to office buildings over to like the arena, and like you may only have to be outside for like 3 minutes. But yeah, Chicago's a fucking clusterfuck.
Yeah, I gotta go back in the fall.
Oh, for work to Chicago?
Yeah.
Where do you stay?
I stayed like a block or two from like the Miracle Mile or whatever they call it.
Oh,
like Michigan Ave. So I stayed like right downtown. Where'd you guys stay?
Pretty downtown. I'm gonna Google search Michigan Avenue right now and see how far away we stayed from that.
I stayed like 6 blocks from Trump Tower.
I saw Trump Tower like walking home because I sent you that Snapchat.
Because like that's
shit.
right.
I was way uptown of Michigan Ave. I was like 6 miles uptown of that.
Because that's
I was like just north of Soldier Field
on the river.
It's a lake.
No, like...
Oh, yeah, the river's right there, too. Yeah.
Trump Tower's right on the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, cities are a shit show. I know you texted us, but, like, I can't believe people live here. Like, I can't believe... I'm there for, like, a day and a half or 2, and I'm like, people do this shit every fucking day?
Dude, we got into our... even the hotel rooms suck. We got into our hotel room, and we walked in, and we're like, holy shit, this was small. And like I have a ton of Hilton points, so I was like, "Oh, we're gonna stay at like a nice hotel." Like,
where'd you stay?
It's called the Palmer House.
Oh yeah, that's a nice one.
Yeah, it sucked. Like the room was tiny. Like the room was small, like the size of my bedroom.
Yeah,
like, that's when you're sitting on the toilet, like the door was like. You could like barely shut the door. Like if you were like we're sitting on the toilet and like wanted to shut the door, you'd have to like squeeze your knees up and be like, "Get it in there."
Just sign you need to do some pushbacks. Push back from the table every once in a while.
Fuck. Well, I mean, I'm good. The vent sesh. I think the Flyers are back. Like, I think they're gonna make the playoffs. We're gonna go on a little run. Gotta keep doing what they're doing, man. Like, keep Cal Peterson out of the net. Get Harrison in there. Maybe bring up Sandstrom, sell Peterson to the minors, and I think they're gonna do it.
They've got through the stretch where they were playing like the every other night stretch. Like I'm just looking at the schedule. There's they've got a day off between now and Tuesday. They've got then till Friday. Then they have a back-to-back on with the Senators and the Caps on Friday, Saturday. But then it's Monday. Then it's Thursday.
Both home. I think they'll be all right.
They're at the Caps, but looking at the rest of the season, like there's enough of there's like some gaps in there that they can go with Harrison a lot more than like having to get to the backup. It looks like, but yeah, there are some tough games coming up for him down the stretch. Are you guys going to the Blackhawks game? Is that the one you guys are going to?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Chicago's not a very exciting team to watch outside of Bedard.
Oh, I was going to say, the other thing I want to say, Bedard is sick.
Yeah, he is.
Like, he was
flashy.
doing some things out there. Like, I was like, damn, he didn't score. Did he score?
No.
I don't think he scored. But he had
Yeah,
a couple of,
no point
like, moves that I was like, damn. Like, my man is slick out there.
He is very flashy, but the rest of the team is kind of very dull. They don't play an
they
exciting
stink.
game.
Yeah, they're just not very good.
But that's what the Flyers are missing right now. Like, they don't have anyone who's like the guy. They have
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like Tippett's good, but he's not out there every shift. It's like, what's Tippett gonna do, right? Like, if you watch McDavid or something with the Oilers, like, every time he touches the puck, it's like, Jesus Christ.
I mean, we saw that a week or so ago or whatever when he had the hat trick in the one period. What do they call it?
Yeah.
The natural hat trick?
The natural hat trick, yeah. But they'll get there. I mean, we're watching meaningful hockey here and coming into March. I think, and I think they're going to do it. Like, I hope we get to do a little playoff preview here in 4 weeks.
I mean, if they just don't fall apart, right?
Exactly. I mean, they've got a cushion. Just keep winning some games.
Like I said,
I think they're going to do
5
it.
games ahead of the Devils. They're 5 points ahead of the Devils. They've only
And
played
the
one
Devils
more game than them.
stink. The Devils
Yeah.
stink.
Like, the two teams chasing them have point differentials of -12, -31. And then the Pens are +15. They're 7
But
points
the Penguins
back.
don't score. Look at the Penguins don't score. Though.
Aside from
That's
fucking today.
well, yeah.
Man.
And they barely won. So
Mhm.
I think the Flyers are in good shape. We're going to see some playoff hockey, I hope. And yeah, we're going to be watching some hockey in April that matters. It's going to be awesome.
Well, hopefully we're doing that. I think we covered it today, boys, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think so.
It's not going to be an impressive run in April, but hopefully they can.
What do
make
you
it
mean,
better.
dude? If they play the Hurricanes are not that good either. They could knock them off. And then all bets are off. I'm in.
I'm in too. I just
All in, buddy.
dude, we're talking before the deadline here. You don't know who they're going to sell.
Yeah, are they selling Walker? Does Walker get dealt?
He's one of the hot pieces right now on the team. And Danny Briere has said pretty much everyone is up for grabs. I mean, they're not shopping. So Scott Lawton, they gave him the A, all that bullshit. They're not shopping him around, but if a call comes in that they can't decline, you know, they're gonna take that call and ship him out. It's that simple. Because this team is not gonna win a cup. Will it be great? Okay. Is it going to be great to watch them in the playoffs if they make it? Absolutely, 100% yes. But they're not a cup-winning team.
The upside is what? They win a playoff series. Like, that's the high-end option.
Or 2, or 3, or we win the cup. You never know.
Yeah, that's probably the point. When Troy's calling for Stanley Cup victories this year, that's probably the point where we end this thing today.
Hey, I'm not an analyst. I'm a fan. It
You're-
could happen.
You guys are the number one hockey analyst for OWH, and all you guys are talking about.
All right. Well, I'm going to bed tonight thinking that the Flyers have a chance. Hunter, if you want to think otherwise, it's just been good knowing you.
Yeah. King Mush over there.
He is. He's the King Mush. All right, boys. Any final thoughts before we leave here?
No, I think we're good. Go Flyers.
All right, boys. Let's go Flyers. Okay, we're doing an everything else segment here for this week. We had a lot going on so far this episode. So everything else, the Tar Heels. The Tar Heels pick up a win in an exciting game over Virginia on Saturday. First time they've won to Virginia in 8 tries. 8 tries. First time they won to Virginia. They win 54-44. For just a little bit of context, Also on Saturday, so 54-44, that's 96 points. Also on Saturday, Alabama and Kentucky played. Alabama scored 95 points. 95. And they lost the game by 22. 2-2. They scored almost the exact amount of points as Virginia and UNC and lost the game by 22 points. Incredible. Elsewhere around the top 25, there was a fun game with Houston and Baylor. Houston got out early. It was the first game of the day, the 11 o'clock Central Time Zone game, and Houston was up like 25-10 or something like that. It took a 41-25 lead at halftime, and I said to the room, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of disappointed. I was expecting this to be a better game. And then the second half happened, and Baylor made it a basketball game, and it was fun as hell coming down the stretch. Houston had a free throw to go up 3 with like 16 seconds left, my notes tell me. They missed it. Baylor came down and got an and one and missed it. But they tied the game. And then Houston made a 3 at the buzzer. No good. Didn't count. We went to overtime. Houston ended up taking over, but man, for a game that I was very excited about, then very disappointed about, then very excited about again, that was a roller coaster of emotions. Duke goes down at Wake Forest. Wake Forest rushes the court as a big proponent of rush the court. You'll remember I went on a passion speech about rushing the court in full-throated support of it. That was a tough look for me. I'm still in support of the idea. The execution can get tough. I said at the time, unless somebody's out there just absolutely decking somebody, I'm in for it. Well, I think this qualifies as absolutely decking somebody. Cal Filipowski rolls his ankle and is maybe out for the year. They said he's maybe out for the year. I don't think that's the case. I think that's fucking Duke crybabies being Duke crybabies. And John Shire went on a big rant. And I think did maybe my friend Coach Slano say something, or did he retweet something? Or maybe I just saw something else. Excuse me. I don't know why I attributed that to Coach Slano. If it was correct, maybe it was. But it's going to be funny to see the people who are all in support of court storming be all against it now. I'm not just going to flip on that. I like court storming. I think it's fun. I think it's college kids having a good time. I'm not going to be all against it. This was a bad look. That was a bad situation. There probably need to be some safeguards. I will agree. You got to get everybody else off the court. You got to get the players off the court because you can't have people getting hurt. And again, when I said that, unless someone's getting decked, and this counts as that, you got to have the safety of the players in mind. If the players are getting hurt, and that's a trend, and Shire was, people are saying mean things to him. Fuck off with the mean things. Get fucking tougher skin. Get tougher skin. But if someone's getting legitimately hurt, that can't happen. That obviously can't happen. So there need to be some safeguards, and it's probably going to get curtailed. And hey, what do you do? That's just the way it goes. The Heels, moving forward, the Heels have Miami coming to town on Monday night. So we'll have the result of that before this pod post. And they host NC State the following Saturday. And then just 2 games remaining after that. We'll talk more about those going forward. Host Notre Dame and then at Duke. So home for 3 of the last 4. Miami, I think, is not great. Yeah, 6-11 in conference. Notre Dame, that's a couple games out. Not good also. And then NC State is okay, 9-7 in conference, 17-10 overall. I don't think they're envisioned as being in the NCAA tournament. I think for the ACC, it's UNC, Duke, Virginia, and Wake Forest. Clemson, I think, had been someone they envisioned as being in as well. I think with the Wake Forest win over Duke, that's kind of moved them up to have 5 teams in the dance. So a couple games, North Carolina should win out and go to Duke. Hopefully with the chance to not cement a number one seed, but put them in a good position as long as they don't get bounced in the first round of the ACC tournament going forward. PGA Tour here. Jake Knapp is your winner. He shoots an even par round today to outlast Sammy Valimaki. My man was out there with a mullet and a mustache, just looking good. Did not watch a lot of this. The Mexico Championship was not high on my list of things to do. Jake Knapp was as recent as I think a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, was a nightclub bouncer and brought home the win. He hit 2 fairways today, and he is now the first player since on the PGA Tour since 1983 to hit 2 fairways or less in the final round and win. He started the day with a 4-shot lead or 5-shot lead, 4-shot lead over Valimaki. And I'm probably totally butchering that name. I had the golf mostly on the little TV today. It got some big TV screen time, but not much. I mean, you look at this leaderboard. Jake Knapp, Valimaki, Jay Lauer. Who is Jay Lauer? Justin Lauer, if you've ever heard of him. Steven Yeager. He's been up there occasionally. CT Pan, Robert McIntyre, P. Raj, Patrick Rogers, Doug Gim. That's Carson Young as C. Young, Eric Van Roy. Like, this was not a strong field. Like, that was the reason why I was not very into that. Honda Classic coming up this week. Oh, here's a good little tweet. Jake Knapp ran out of money while trying to qualify for the PGA Tour, so he spent about 9 months working as a bouncer as a nightclub to keep his dreams alive. $1.45 million winner's purse today. That's crazy that it's a winner's purse of $1.45 million in a bullshit PGA Tour event. I mean, there's probably a reason. I mean, we could get into this whole diatribe about why professional golf is unsustainable unless there's Saudi money involved in it. I mean, they're going to give out in 2 weeks. They're going to give out $20 million at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. For golf's a niche sport. Like, that's what it is. But yeah, so we got the Honda Classic next, which is not the Honda Classic anymore. It's something else. I sent a text with it. Let me see if I can find it. The name of it, like, I didn't even recognize what it is. Hang on. Nope. Nah, I've lost it. Other golf news. Anthony Kim is reportedly coming back to the Live Golf Tour next week. I think they're playing somewhere, obviously, if he's playing next week. Live Golf, where is their schedule? Here we go. They are playing in Jeddah next week. So tee off on March 1st will be 2:15 a.m. in the Central Time Zone. So I will not be getting up at 2:15 to watch Anthony Kim, but I will check it out. Anthony Kim obviously has not played golf anywhere professionally in a long, long time. It's been since, I think, 2012. And I believe what I saw was that this was a deal that was more incentive-based. There was always the thing that he had a big insurance policy that if he didn't play golf, that he was able to keep cashing on. He was a guy that came in hot. I mean, his last year on tour was 2012. He played 10 events. He made 2 cuts. He had 4 missed cuts and 3 withdrawals. Somehow we're missing an event there. He was DQ'd at the Northern Trust that year. His low round was a couple of 69s, one at the Waste Management, one at the Arnold Palmer, but also throughout 2012 had rounds of 77, 76, and 83 at the final round of the Arnold Palmer. Never finished very high at all. I mean, his best finish that year was T42. I believe he was very injured 2011, let's see how that looked. He played 26 events, made 14 cuts, missed 11, and withdrew one time. So even then, not a great. He had a T5 at the British Open that year. He had a T12 at the Franklin Templeton Shootout that was a December event. So, I mean, that you can barely count that. A T13 at the Shell Houston. Missed the cut at the Masters, missed the cut at the Players, T54 at the U.S. Open. So nothing great in even 2011. 2010, I think, was his last good year on tour. Pulling that up now. Oh, even in 2010, he only played 14 events. I think he got hurt in he didn't play from May until August that year. That, I believe, was the year. Yes, that was the Masters year, where he shot 65 on Sunday and made like 11 birdies. So I think really, if you go back, like 2009 was his last like good year. He played 22 events that year, 3 top 10s, a runner up. Did he win in 2010 or 2011? He did win in 2010 as well. He won the Shell Houston Open that year. So 2009, he did not win. 2008, I think he won once or twice. He won twice that year, and that was his Ryder Cup year. So he was kind of a flash in the pan. It'll be interesting to see if he still got it all. I mean, he really didn't have it when he left the PGA Tour. A lot of people, would guess that he's doing this because he's broke. So, yeah. So there's that. Let's go to some passing thoughts here. What do you say? Roommate made some chili this past week, and one of the days I just had some buttered bread, some buttered white bread. I don't know if anybody else did this growing up, but like buttered white bread was a thing when you'd have spaghetti and meatballs. You just take a piece of white bread and spread some butter across it and like go with it. I know some other people I've talked to in life have done, poor man's garlic bread. You do buttered bread. You toast the bread, throw a little butter on it, throw a little garlic powder. But yeah, buttered bread still hits, man. Still hits. I talked a little bit about my trip to Chicago. I'm just not a city guy, man. That is not for me. There's people who love it, and that's the kind of lifestyle they like. It's not mine. I like a small town. I like to get in my car and go wherever I want without having to worry about getting stuck in traffic. I did a big city area for about a year in my life, lived outside Washington, D.C., and the breaking point for me was I was trying to get somewhere that should have taken me 30, 45 minutes at the most, and it took me like 2.5 hours, and that was when I broke. I was like, I'm leaving. I'm going home. Like, I'm going back to northeastern Pennsylvania. And then never really looked back. I don't mind living in like city adjacent. I lived kind of city adjacent outside Madison, Wisconsin for a while, and Madison's kind of a small city. But man, cities are not for me. I talked about the tiny hotel room. Hotel was not the greatest experience. There was a dirty ass towel in our room. The room was tiny. They tried to charge me for taking shit out of the mini bar. That didn't happen. So it wasn't my favorite experience. The hockey game was awesome. I had a good time. It was funny where we stayed walking around. Went out to a bar to grab some food after the game and have a drink. And, they shot The Dark Knight in Chicago, and like walking through, like you could kind of look around and like you could see it and like, oh man, I'm in the fucking Dark Knight. Like that was fun. I don't mind an occasional trip to city. Like I didn't hate it, but when I looking around, I was like, man, I couldn't do this. I couldn't do this long term. I know that's a personal preference, and some people are like, I couldn't live where you live. Like, you live in this little town with nothing going on, and I love it. And other people are like, that's just not for me. But yeah, that's not my style. That night, I was just watching some TV before bed, and Four Brothers was on. That movie slaps. Four Brothers is awesome. Mark Wahlberg kicks ass. The other brothers, Tyrese Gibson. Is it Tyrese Gibson? What's his name? What? It's not Tyrese Gibson. It is Tyrese Gibson. Tyrese Gibson, Andre 3000. Sofia Vergara was in it. She's she's Tyrese's girlfriend. Garrett Hedlund is in it. The guy who plays Victor Sweet, you know him from things I can't pronounce. Chiwetel Ejiofor. He's in a lot of stuff. 12 Years a Slave. He's in 2012. He's in Doctor Strange. He's in a lot of things. He's a good actor. He plays the bad guy in that. That's a fun movie, man. I really like that movie. I don't know if I should or if I shouldn't, but I like it. What else do I got here? There was a video of Cam Newton like getting jumped by like 3 dudes, and Cam was standing his ground. He was not bothered. He was not bothered at all by those dudes trying to jump him. He was having none of it. Like, he was fighting back. It was awesome. It was awesome. What else? Anything else here? That's about, the NFL salary cap went up something like $30 million for the coming year. Helpful for the Packers. That's going to give them a little, they went from under the cap to above the cap because the cap went up by about $10 million more than expected. They were expecting about a $20 million bump, and it went up 30. So good news for the Packers. I think that's about it. Let me just double check, see if I took pictures or anything. Yeah, cap up from 224 to 255 this year. Just shy, $29.6 million increase. And Joe Pampliano here. Always good information from Joe Pampliano. For context, next year, each team will probably receive over $400 million in national revenue from the league office, media rights, league sponsorships, etc., meaning NFL teams are already up $150 million before any local revenue is calculated minus expenses. So good deal. Good deal there. Oh, also got a picture out in front of the Michael Jordan statue at the United Center. That's your boy there. So that was cool too to get that. I think that's it. So why don't we go wrap this thing up? We've been going for a while here at this point. So let's go close up the shop. Closing time, everybody. Thank you as always to everyone who watches, listens, hangs out. Thank you to our guests this week. Thank you to David Page for coming on, talking to us. I appreciate that a lot. That's a new guest. That's not just a friend. That's someone, we reached out to and had come on. So thank you, David. I really appreciate your time. Thank you to T-Man and H-Man coming on after a tough Flyers loss. Thank you to producer Kevy as he gets back to after post-writer's strike and gets back to working on some TV shows here. He's helping me transition into being able to do some of the editing and of the videos and do it myself. So thank you to him. Always producer Kevy, even if I'm somehow trying to stumble through and take the reins here. So many thanks. And again, thank you to everybody. We'll be back next week. Have more to talk about. Hoping to do some more fun stuff along the way. There's going to be golf. There's going to be hockey. There's going to be basketball. A lot of fun stuff coming. We're not too far away from March Madness, and after that, the NFL draft, and we're still got plenty of golf. So a lot of fun stuff coming up. So until next time, peace.